Now, you're having some trouble finding some sheds this off-season on public land? We have some tips that'll help you. You're gonna find more sheds, and that's ultimately the goal. Clear cuts can be the #1 food source in the area. So when I'm looking for sheds, if you just focus only on clear cuts on public land, you're going to find a high percentage of shed antlers, because not only do those clear cuts represent a great food source, but they represent great cover options. So you can use your digital maps, and that's great because you can sit at home from the couch, but at the same time you can take it one step further. You can visit your local park or ranger, find out where the timber rotations are from 1 to 5 years ago, which has the best regeneration. And boy, when you have that information, you combine it with the digital maps, you can develop a great plan that focuses around clear cuts to find shed antlers and be very efficient with your time and try to find the most antlers you can during shed season. One of the most precision locations to find shed antlers on public land is by finding those dry islands out in a swamp. Topo, you can actually see little grasses, marsh grasses will show in white areas compared to the green. That green area is typically highland, the white area is lowland, you can see that marsh. And then you're just looking for one little topo line. One little topo line typically means 20 foot in elevation change. And if you see that little circle out in the swamp and you can get to it safely and there's deer in the area, incredible spots to find sheds with a high amount of precision. And at the same time, unlike a lot of times where you find a shed, those can be outstanding spots to hunt in the fall. Typically, deer are not traveling up and down those steep locations to get to food sources or bedding areas because they have to expend a lot of energy to do so. Get rid of all those steep locations. So I'm looking at lowland flat areas where they meet hillside. And then I'm looking at big open hardwood tops where you might find acorns, which represent a large amount of forage on public land. And using that topographical change, I'm looking for the top flats and open areas. I'm looking at the bottom draws. I'm getting rid of those areas where the topo lines are very, very close and tight. That means it's very steep. I'm looking where those topo lines are far apart. That means indicates a flat area. You'll have areas where their steep lines are close together and then they widen to a bench on a side of a hill. Maybe there's an open spot where there's a crossing where a draw comes up one side or the other and you have this little V that comes up the side of the ridge on either side. It's called a saddle on top of a point or ridge. So I'm focusing on those topographical change areas. And not only does that equal more sheds and more antlers, but it helps you define exactly where to hunt this fall using topographical features and getting to know the lay of the land. Now I'm gonna tell you a little secret, and some of my friends might even get mad at me for this, but some of the best areas to hunt for sheds are locations of public land next to private land. A lot of them have food plots, they're feeding deer where it's legal in certain states, they have clear cuts, they're managing the timber to a higher level or a habitat, they're making habitat plantings, they might have ag fields, golf course, subdivision, all of those equal food sources. And when you have food sources on private land, then deer will stack into that public land, come out to that private land every afternoon to feed, and then you can come in the backside of that public land, get close to the private land, walk through, even if you have to walk an hour in. And when you've done that, and when you've shed hunt, and when you've gotten to know the area, guess what? Great spot to hunt in the fall. One of the perfect combinations of habitat to find potentially sheds and even a good spot to hunt in the fall is that combination of lowland swamp cover and then a south-facing slope. The southerly hillside you can find a lot of sheds on, but deer have to get out of the wind. They don't need to feel the sun, they have to get out of the wind. Wind burns energy, frostbite ears in half, so getting out of the wind is critical to them. If things get dicey, the weather turns up and really gets cold and windy and bad and nasty and snowy, the deer can go find that thermal protection in the conifers, but then they still have that food source of the south-facing slope. So when you have that conifer cover, swamp cover, thermal protection, and you have that adjacent south-facing slope, that can be a perfect combination for cover and food during the day. So that's where elevations can give you a little bit of an advantage when you're looking for sheds. And if you find those two habitat types, lowland conifer cover with the south-facing slope, then you'll be heading in the right direction to find sheds this season. What I found is that's a highly proven combination of strategies to find sheds on public land. And again, not every place you find a shed is a great spot to actually hunt in the fall. But if you follow these combinations, whether it's clear cuts, south-facing slopes, behind private land areas, you'll not only find sheds, but you'll find that cover and food combination that translates into the fall. And if you want to find more information out about this, I encourage you to check out my Whitetail Habitat Solutions YouTube page, and you can find that information quickly. Get out there, find some sheds, and really learn the land as it relates to public land in your hunt this fall.